I'm Rebecca Marola, one of the co-owners of Function Junction. Today, we're going to make tres leches cake. And while the cake itself has no fat in it, we'll make up for that when it comes to the topping because it's a combination of 3 very rich, very delicious milks. So first thing we're gonna do is grease our pan. Now, if you've got littles in your household and you want to involve them in baking, this is a really good place to start. I remember when my mother would bake and I was just real little, she would let me smear the butter or shortening back then in the pan before she would bake in it, and it was always really fun for me to do. So after you put just a little bit of butter on the pan, just take your hand and smear it around. You want to get all the surfaces covered, and you don't want to leave any glass showing through because the cake might stick in that spot. So there's really 3 steps to creating this cake from scratch. The first thing I'm going to do is combine my dry ingredients, then we're going to move to our egg whites, and then we're going to move to our egg yolks. It's really pretty simple. So I'm going to take my flour, I'm going to add baking soda, cinnamon, and salt. And I'm going to combine these really well. Now, it's important to combine your baking powder in with your flour, because if you don't and you try to add your baking powder into your wet ingredients by itself, it tends to clump. And not only does it not then have the leavening power that you're using it for, but it also is really nasty if you happen to end up with it in your final product. Nothing worse than biting into a little bomb of baking powder. Okay, so once you get your dry ingredients mixed up, we're gonna set those aside. We're gonna take our egg whites, and when it comes to separating your eggs, it's a lot easier to separate them if they're at room temperature. If you take them right out of the fridge and try to do it, the white is a little bit thick and it seems to cling to the yolk a little bit better. So be sure to take your eggs out early in the day if you plan on separating them. So, egg whites, cream of tartar. And we're gonna beat this until soft peaks form. So when I first start beating my eggs, whether it's whites or yolks, I like to start on medium just until I get a little bit of air whipped in that. Otherwise, it tends to sling all over the kitchen. Now, I'm not sure I'm quite there yet, so I'm gonna give it a little bit more time. So that's quite nice. We've got nice soft peaks. Okay, so now it's time to do the yolks. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start out a little bit slower at the beginning just to get some air whipped into these yolks. And then I'm gonna tip my bowl, which will help control the splatter. Okay, so our yolks have gotten a little bit thicker, a little bit more pale. We're gonna add some sugar gradually. If you dump all your sugar in here and you turn your mixer on, you're gonna have a sugar snowstorm. So you really wanna kind of avoid that. So I'm gonna put a little bit in. I'm gonna start lower. Get that incorporated. I'll add some more. And you can hear that my mixture is starting to get a little bit thicker, so I'm going to increase my speed. Okay, so now I'm going to take this opportunity to scrape down the sides of my bowl. I'm also going to add my vanilla almond extracts and some cold water. Perfect. So to this, we're going to add our dry ingredients. Kind of the same thing with the sugar. You don't want to dump the whole thing in because you might end up powdering your kitchen. You just want to mix this to combine it. You really don't want to overmix. So we're done with our mixer for a while. This is a really good time if you have little helpers to give them a beater, because that's part of the fun of baking, is licking a beater. Once we have our dry ingredients incorporated into our egg and sugar mixture, it's time for us to take the egg whites that we beat earlier, and we're going to take about a third of these and put them into this mixture just to lighten it up a little. So we're going to fold that carefully. Just so that our batter's not so thick. Once we've loosened that up a little bit, we're free to go ahead and put the rest of the egg whites in, and we're gonna fold them until we don't see any white streaks. Okay, I'm not seeing any more white streaks. So I think we're ready to pour it into our pan. So we're going to bake this at 350 for about 30 minutes. So once your cake is cooled completely, you're going to take a fork and poke holes all over it. And we're doing that so that when we pour the combination of the 3 milks over the cake, it will help it to absorb faster. So now that our cake is poked, we're going to combine our 3 milks. I'm starting with the heavy cream in my largest measuring cup. I'm then going to add evaporated milk and sweetened condensed milk. You want to stir your milks until the thick one, the sweetened condensed milk, gets incorporated into the other 2. I'm also going to add some more vanilla. So now that our milks are combined, we're going to pour them over our cooled, poked cake. Now this seems like a lot of liquid for such a little pan, but believe me, this cake can handle it. So we're going to pour slowly and just let the milk soak in. The cake we made is basically a sponge cake, so we're really going to let it do its job. So now we're going to refrigerate our cake covered for at least 4 hours. And before you serve it, be sure to dust it with a good coating of cinnamon. I like to use Saigon cinnamon. It's got a much stronger punch of cinnamon flavor. Any little blemishes that you had on the top of your cake will be covered under your cinnamon. So once you've dusted your tres leches cake with cinnamon, it's ready to enjoy, which I'm going to do right now. Thank you so much for hanging with me this afternoon. My name is Rebecca Marola. Come down to Function Junction at Crown Center and say hi, or shop us online at functionjunction.com. We sell cool cooking stuff to give you kitchen confidence.